Hi, my name is Jacques Pellet, and I'll be presenting on the trade market and football and further understanding the greater impacts it has on the growth of South American countries. My thesis is the globalization of football has developed an unfair and unregulated trading of top players from South America into the monopoly that is European leagues, depriving domestic South American markets of their own players, thus a source of financial capital, which ultimately emulates the greater impacts of globalization between core and periphery countries within the larger global political economy. So, the historical development of trading players can be connected back to the very first professional football player beginning to create what would be forged as the transatlantic system of trading South American players to European leagues, which began in the 1930s after the very first World Cup and has increased steadily ever since. The creation of these routes are no coincidence. In fact, they are greatly impacted by the effects of past colonialism. As a result of Europeans settling in these South American countries in the 19th century, migratory routes were created and have remained consistent over time. Of the 351 players who have played professionally in Italy between 1929 and 1965, over half came from Argentina, Brazil, or Uruguay, and the majority had Italian origins. So, what we are concerned about decades later, with live football remaining one of the most highly sought after entertainment assets, is the effects of these trades as it enables Europe to reap all the benefits. Europe is divided, football in Europe is divided into the big five leagues: the Bundesliga in Germany, La Ligue 1 in France, La Liga in Spain, Serie A in Italy, and the English Premier League in England. Advances in technology, communication, and transport have drastically accelerated the rate at which football clubs can globalize and take advantage of the markets available to them. With the most lucrative marketing platforms and television deals, sponsorships and massive wages, the footballing infrastructure, and the power that appeals to players around the world, these clubs have essentially monopolized the market. Manchester United, an English club, had an astonishing $700 million yearly revenue in 2012. With this kind of money, the Big Five are able to take their pick amongst the abundance of talent in South America, with clubs rarely in the position to negotiate a fair transfer fee, which is reflected in a report that shows in 2010 Argentina alone exported 2,204 players to Europe. Given this extremely lucrative market, these corporate-like football clubs have control over more than half of it, as seen in the diagram. The Big Five make up 58.8% of the European football market. Not only is the European football market the most important one, but these five clubs make up more than half of it. So to put this in perspective, the revenue of the UEFA, which is the Association of Football in Europe, was about 3.86 million euros. The equivalent in South America, for the South American Football Confederation, only reached about $505 million. So, globalization in football has created small concentrations of quality players to develop, stripping the lesser teams and leagues in South America of the assets which help them grow. European teams will make risky investments in a young and cheap South American player such as Messi or Neymar in order to later reap the benefits of his talent. And these South American teams need to market their young players for financial reasons, reflecting the dependence they have on the lucrative European market. The English Premier League, La Liga, Serie A are all examples of these stockpiles of world talent which leave leagues such as the Primera División in Venezuela with the lesser remains. As you would expect, this reduces the demand for the game in the country, as not only are the best players leaving, but fans defect and begin following the sides they have left to join, eventually meaning the market will follow too. This is easily reflected in the case of Venezuela, when after a successful season and the decision for them to stage the 2017 Copa America for the first time, the Football Association of Venezuela decided to build three new impressive stadiums. This process, though, came with a built-in contradiction. It's because the rise in football was due to the rise in talent of domestic football players. These same football players were later recognized and quickly picked up by major European clubs, leaving Venezuela with an unprecedented infrastructure, but suddenly the best players were no longer around to attract fans to new and spruced up stadiums. As mentioned earlier, these European clubs will make tricky investments on young players in order to obtain them cheaply. A great example is Neymar, being sold in 2013 to Barcelona from his club in Brazil, Santos FC, for a transfer fee of $57.1 million. But towards the end of his contract in 2017, the Brazilian player was sold to PSG, the club in Paris, from Barcelona, for an outstanding $275 million. This system of trading has become very much a reflection of the global political economy of the world, where the South American countries depend on these greater and more lucrative economies in order to sustain themselves by selling their players early on without reaping any of the benefits of their future to invest in their own football market. This definition by Valenzuela and Valenzuela of the dependency theory, some countries in the center were able to specialize in industrial production of manufactured goods because the peripheral areas of the world which they colonized provided the necessary primary goods, agriculture, and mineral for consumption in the center. To me, reflects the system put in place surrounding football, where again these European countries were able to monopolize the football markets because the South American countries which they colonized provided the best players in the world that everybody paid to watch on these European teams. Finally, some possible solutions we could bring to the table in order to restore balance and equality could be creating a similar system of accountability than that of the draft optional protocol of the ICESCR or of the Fair Trade Foundation. This could be introduced through FIFA, the largest transnational corporation in football, to hold actors in economic globalization accountable and regulate trades in order for South American countries to somehow reap the benefits of their own players without being completely exploited. One thing that has not exactly solved anything, but it has helped, is FIFA's intervention in 2011, banning teams from giving contracts to foreigners younger than 18. It should also be fair to further and even strengthen the intervention of financial fair play rules, which ensures clubs don't spend more than they make. Finally, even as the competition is high in South America and they do rack in a solid $500 million a year, an ideal world would be able to give these small South American clubs a chance to catch up to these billion-dollar clubs in Europe by ensuring that their players stay to play within their leagues in order to create more of a fan base and thus more of a market. Thank you very much.